Hi, my name is Megan Kane, and I'm doing my lesson on based off of a unit of the U.S. fighting for independence and framing the Constitution from the years 1776 to 1815. So my essential question that I'm going to have the students try to answer is, what are the origins and continuing influence of the key ideals of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution? So some focus questions and objectives that I'm going to give the students is, how did the U.S. first become a nation, and what were the issues that the young nation faced? Also, I'm going to ask, how did the United States become a democratic republic? The third objective that I'm going to have is, how are the power and responsibility distributed, shared, and limited in the government established by the U.S. Constitution? So at the end of the lesson, the students will be able to know the students will know the key ideals and principles that are outlined in the Declaration of Independence, and also the rule of law of the Constitution. They will also be able to know some of the vocabulary words such as separation of power, representative government, and the Bill of Rights. So at the end of the lesson, the students will be able to recite their understanding of the differences in the values, the interests, priorities, and opinions that exist in such a diverse society such as ours, and in the past and also the present. And they will also be able to explain the process that went on with the framing of the United States Constitution. They also will be able to think about how the government is both a democracy and a republic, and the certain themes that help define the U.S. from the years 1776 to even around 1990 to up to the present. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to have a series of independent group work and partner exercises to enhance their understanding how the U.S. fought for their independence and the framing of the Constitution during those specific years. So what I'm going to do in the beginning, I'm going to have an opening exercise, and it's going to be kind of like an informal assessment. And what they're going to do is, the students are going to work in groups, and they're going to decide what they're going to have or where they're going to go for dinner. So they can choose from a number of restaurants. They could have different restaurants, but and they have to do a brief review on the restaurant. So if and only if the students actually get to agree on one specific restaurant, will the principal pay for their bill for their dinner. So what I'm going to ask them to guide their understanding is, do they have different preferences? How did they go about reaching a settlement? Did they have to compromise? What were the hardships in it? So this is just a way to relate it to daily life, relate the framing of the Constitution to daily life and decisions. So for my mini lesson and for my second part of the lesson, I'm going to have the students watch a video on the framing of the U.S. Constitution. And while the video is going on, I'm going to have them complete a T-chart of the obstacles and the agreements that were made during the framing of the U.S. Constitution. For my student with a disability, I think this is really going to work for him because of the fact that it is a visual aid, and he will be able to make connections to the video and what we're learning in class. Instead of just reading it on a piece of paper, he's going to be able to see it and visualize it. So I'm also going to give notes to my student with a disability, a cognitive disability, and we're going to read the notes out loud to the class and have them annotate on the notes. The reason I'm reading it out loud to the class is so the student, instead of independently reading it and maybe struggling with some of the vocabulary and understanding what's going on, we're going to say it aloud and have the student follow with us. So for my activity, what I'm going to do is, for my second activity, I'm going to have the students assign them to different roles as delegates representing one of the 12 states at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. And they're going to have to decide what's in their state's best interest as far as representation in a new government structure. So the choice is whether each state should have equal representation, or whether the representation should be based on the size of the state's population. So if the 9 states do not come to an agreement, a new constitution and a new nation may not come into being. It may not happen. So what the students have to figure out is, what's in their state's best interests, and how do they go about the delegations and trying to reach an agreement on representation in the legislative branch of government. So after the lesson, for my summary, I'm going to have the students independently answer a question and give an example of how do disagreements over certain policies get resolved in Congress, and describe 3 processes that they may use to reach settlements. And this could be related to the past, such as the U.S. Constitution, and it could also be related to recent policies that are going on today. So it's also a way to connect the past to the present and have them create real life examples. So after that, they're going to talk with their partner about what they wrote down, and then we're going to have a group discussion. The group discussion and the partner work I'm really focusing on because of my student with a cognitive disability, so they can hear different perspectives from other students and be guided by their peers, by his or her peers. For the assessments, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an informal one, which is going to be my exit ticket, and they're going to have to identify the certain themes that helped define the U.S. from 1776 to 1990. And this is kind of a difficult question. I feel like may have some trouble on, but I think from the informal activity and the activity that we did with being delegates, that I really think that they might really get a deeper understanding of the topic. My homework assignment that's going to be my formal assessment, and it's going to be different multiple choice questions that's going to be collected and graded. One of the examples that I'm using for my assessment is there were a number of problems with the Articles of Confederation. Which of these was not one of those problems? And it's going to be a multiple choice assessment, so I feel like that will help my student with disability, so they could narrow it down and use a process of elimination. I also have some other potential questions that I'm going to ask in the class. They're also multiple choice. And for those multiple choice questions that I may give out when we give out the notes, I'm going to group the students based on homogeneously on their ability and heterogeneously based on their learning styles. So those students who are visual learners, I'm going to put together. Those who are kinesthetic learners, I'm going to put together. Auditory learners, I'm also going to put together, and so on. So I'm also going to scaffold the worksheets and the multiple choice questions based on difficulty. So for this lesson, I definitely have modified it for my special needs student that has a cognitive disability. My student has trouble working and staying focused while doing independent work, so I really feel like the group work and the partner work will help the student have a deeper understanding of the lesson. And also I'm going to give them vocabulary lists with definitions to help them with the reading while we're going along with them. I feel like this will definitely help the student. The student does well in groups, and that's why I really have focused my lesson around 2 activities that are mainly group work. And the video, of course, will be used as a visual aid, and the student will be able to make connections and meanings to the lesson. Another way I've modified it, instead of having the students annotate by themselves and independently, I'm going to have them talk about what they annotated and talk about what they did in groups and with partners. I do believe that all the students, and especially my student with a disability, by this lesson will be able to meet the objectives and will be able to understand how the issues of a young United States helped face and created the key values and principles that the U.S. still has today in government. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed the video.